Hey everyone, I'm Ottengroff, and on this episode of the Untrained Ear, we are going to be digging straight into Birthing by Swans. So, Birthing is the 17th studio album from experimental rock group Swans. This is a band with immensely deep lore that spans all the way back to the 1980s, which is undoubtedly far too long to get into in a simple album analysis, but I encourage, as always, for you guys to jump back and dive into that if you're not familiar with it, because it's worth the read. I will also use this time to disclose that I myself, admittedly, have not listened to any of their previous work, and this I have come quickly to discover is nothing short of a sin, and I apologize for it. But rest assured that after having consumed this album happily, I will be doing that quite extensively because my goodness, was this an album worth paying attention to. This is said to be, for all intents and purposes, the Swan Song album for Swans, the band. Michael Gira has come forward and said that basically all the projects moving forward are going to be much more tamed down in comparison, that this is going to be the last like kind of mega project that Swans puts forward, and in addition to that, probably the last project that he stands in as the primary producer for the band, which pans out since he is now 70 years old. So that being said, this project is certainly gigantic, and that is not anything new, apparently, for those who have been following Swans across their gigantic history. As this extremely long winded project has nearly a 2 hour runtime. In fact, it's just 4 minutes shy of that. And this spans across the breadth of 7 tracks. Each track presents itself as a journey with a sonic progression and development across it that even the shortest of these, which is just around 7 minutes, is a multi-phase track. And across all of these tracks, which are extremely lush instrumentally and musically, with instrumentals that are engaging and dynamic and awe-inspiring, quite simply, across. Um, One aspect that I will say is just necessary to be celebrated is Michael Gira's voice, which is nothing short of sensational as he weaves this just absolutely mesmerizing sense of emotion across all of his singing, which for me was reminiscent of Isaac Wood, the former frontman for Black Country New Road. The way that Michael Gira sings is almost as though he's acting, and the emotional depth that he breathes into his voice is very much a huge contributor to the depth that each track pervades across, and the storytelling that the songs on this album conveys. And let me tell you, when it comes to tracks that are worth analyzing, every single one of these 7 tracks has plenty to completely dissect and analyze from a vocal, production, and instrumental sound point, as not a single one of these tracks was disappointing or lacking in any regard whatsoever. Now, granted, this is coming from the lips of someone who has explored absolutely nothing from Swan's previous discography, and I will be bold in saying that openly. With that having been said, I come in with a fresh pair of ears on this, and I will say confidently that these tracks are phenomenal. And so it is worth mentioning that this album is immensely strong sonically compared to everything else that is come out currently and has come out so far this year for certain. So, in terms of tracks to analyze, as stated, you can analyze every single track on this album and find nothing but excellence to talk about. if I did that, we would be stuck in a multi-hour Professor Sky style video, and I do love Professor Sky, but I don't think either of us wants to be in that situation. I think I'm the guy who keeps these things more brief, so we're gonna go ahead and head in that direction. So I picked three for us. I'm going to open with the Healers because it was the track that I had one of the most emotional reactions to because it was my first introduction to Swans. So this was, in all intents, a mythical epic that I felt was truly a transient experience. You have three phases to the track. You get the transient intense introduction, then that moves into the rising action and the conflict driven climax of the track, and then this very remorseful and pain stricken conclusion. All of this accented by myriads of instrumentation that I could spend 10 minutes talking about. I usually like to break down all the different like instrumental pieces, and I'll do that to a degree on some of these other tracks, but for this one, like, there's so much instrumentation to break down in this 20 plus minute track that it would be exhausting to talk about all the excellence that unfolds in this, that I just can't, like, we can't do this. But what I will do is I will talk about the strings in this piece, which are introduced in multiple different manners and recontextualized, as they are at one point even used to symbolize the howls of this wolf that is like stalking, or this wolf pack that is swimming and hunting down and trying to sabotage the pregnancy. And it is very amazing to listen to how these strings are so masterfully executed and seamlessly recontextualized, and it's very dynamic how the symbolism comes across very in a very straightforward manner that I think even somebody who listens at a more like surface level to this track would be able to pick up on what they're doing in the track, which is truly a level of storytelling beyond what you would normally get. And it's not done in this crude or corny way. It's done in this way where it's just like so seamlessly conveyed. It's like masterful directing, which is truly a step beyond. And This was also the first time that I'm introduced to Michael Gira's vocals, which I could swoon over for 30 minutes, an hour, a week, a month. I mean, this guy has the ability to act with his voice and to use it to inject emotional depth and to inject soul and purpose and meaning into a track and enhance it in a way that not many other vocalists can. And that kind of secret sauce is something that, especially in these bigger project bands, truly can escalate tracks beyond what everybody else is doing. There's a difference between making excellent work and truly groundbreaking inspirational work. And what this band is doing, or has done for seemingly a very long time, is made inspirational work. And that much is clear based on the research I've done, based on how Fantano talks about them. And it's very clear, especially after having listened to this album for myself, just how masterful each element is, especially his voice. The instrumentation, just bouncing back to that for a second, I think it's important to touch on when you have a track that's 20 plus minutes long and you're going through multi phases of it, the way that the cohesion is so enmeshed into everything, and you have such a complex cast of instruments that are being utilized and different sonic tones throughout the multi shifting phases of the track that are coming in and transitioning together and conveying together, and you're getting an overall journey and a message, and all of that is needing to be executed in just the right way for a track like this to not get tedious and tiresome. And it's executed. And not only is it executed, but it's executed in a manner where the track is addictive and it's emotional and it's powerful. And it takes a really, really special kind of something to be able to pull off a track like that. This is not a 6 minute, piece, which is already an enduring piece. This is 21 plus minutes of multi-phased instrumentation, and we're not talking about your prototypical rock band. We're talking about all different forms of orchestral instrumentation that are weaved into the production. This is There's a difference again between excellence and genius. And this passes into that phase, in my opinion. There's something written into the genetic code of this track, and I'll be bold enough to say every other track, beyond perfect. It is symbiosis in the band. It is a oneness. It is this tonal fluidity and this vision and this cohesion. This is what a band aspires to be at its core. And I think it's pulled off perfectly. And I understand that I haven't been following this band, since 1980 whatever. Heck, I haven't been alive since 1980 whatever. But, what I see in this album blows away. I mean, I'll be bold enough to say this with my full chest and spoil a video that's coming out later this month. It blows away everything that's touched my ears so far this year. Okay, so The Tower is the second track I want to talk about, and I've kind of labeled this internally as the Ode to Trump. The lore behind this piece was written in the aftermath of a rather vivid dream of, shall we say, a very specific nature about the current president. And this track starts off quite literally ravaging, as it's laced with, in moments, very symbolic language and in others, very direct language about the protagonist, who is very thinly veiled as he passionately dominates the globe, however you want to interpret that word. This is paraded by rampaging drums and guitar chords and just very dynamic rock elements basically all around. And then after this all climaxes, there's a like subsiding clarity as this the chanting comes in about how he's gonna fix the globe, okay? And then you get this soothing accordion, which I totally didn't think was a thing, but it totally is, okay? And then you get these dancing like piano chords and soft guitar, and it's this very like mellow, like easy moment. And you get the chanting, and it's very like motivational. And then it transitions into a prog rock piece, and you get the soaring guitar riffs, and then the lyricism is just chef's kiss fantastic, as you get this heroic monologuing, as it's just Trump versus the world to just save us all. I am not, like, you cannot make this stuff up. This is a 10 out of 10 experience. Must listen. Must listen. All right, let's talk about the merge, which I have labeled for myself as this unsettling baptism of sound. This track opens up with a child's voice, which says the words, "I love you, mommy." And then immediately after that, you get barraged with a rampage of booming drums, and it roars at you for minutes ceaselessly, and you're just baffled. What is happening? And this leads you into just this very dangerous, tense feeling that pervades the entirety of this track. You get a rolling bass line with drums that keep the pace, and this persists for the vast majority of this song. You get chiming in from here and there, guitars and these jazzy horns and flute, which come in and they do different things, different mix-ups, and they come in and they leave. It's very chaotic and very disturbing. You also get smooth jazz keyboard forays and splashes of these whistles that seem to amble in and out. And it's a little discordant, and it all feels very sinister. And then that plays with you for a while, and then all of a sudden, it's very jarring. You get this electronic interjection that just interferes, and you get another barraging drum roll, and a child's voice comes in again, and this time it's counting off. And first it counts up, and it goes in German, and then English, and then it counts down, and this goes in English, and then back to German. And after this is done, and you get a little more music, you get this slam in of an organ, and this transient choral foray with ominous synth that is painting the background. And this sits with you for a while. And you start to completely not trust this piece, as at any moment, the instrumentation is going to hit you with something new and something that is going to catch you off guard, and it's going to be even darker than it was before. And it all transitions very well into each other, but it's just escalating the bleakness of the track. It's just getting worse. Everything is just getting worse in this piece. And I don't mean that it's sounding bad. I mean that the despair is deepening. The despair is deepening. Finally, you get some vocals. The tone shifts to this dark Western style. You get these acoustic guitar arpeggios, and the production is lush and rich, but it's with diegetic noise that vividly paints a visual backdrop to the piece. You can almost see where you are. One of these diegetic sounds that really stood out for me is this screeching swing set that is very obviously present. As the swing lists back and forth, you can hear the screech of the rusted metal as it creaks and croons, sliding back and forth, which seamlessly works its way into the instrumentation, mind you, and just does more to amplify this despaired feeling that you have continually built more and more across the course of this tracks. And the lyrics are just dark and they're sinister. And then you're left with this choral chanting, and the track gives way and finally comes to a close. And it is just a sinister scene. Your emotions have just, across the entirety of this piece, been absolutely massacred by macabre. I've been listening to music for a long time. I've been critically listening to music for about 2 years. I've been talking about it on YouTube for a couple months. I've never felt like this. Never. I've never encountered a track that did this to me. A piece of me connected with this on a level I didn't think was possible. I've come close to having a feeling like this before with music, but I've never connected like this before. That is an indication of something more to a sound. I understand that there are a lot of albums this band has put out, and I understand that there may be more dynamic pieces. And maybe my opinion about all of this will change as I explore those. But as it stands right now, I haven't listened to those. I've listened to this. And I've never been impacted by a song like I was with The Merge. I have rarely been impacted by an album like I have with this one. I've given out 10s on the Untrained ear. I'm sure many of you guessed by this point that this was on track for a 10. But giving this album a simple 10 feels like giving it an undercut, because this is more than that. There's a difference, as I've said multiple times across this review, between excellence and genius. I can't sit here and slap a 10 review on a piece like this and consider that a sufficient rating. That'd be like slapping a 10 on Ants from Up There and saying that's good enough, which is why when I think about a baseless rating for this piece, I would call it a masterpiece.